Here we go. Happy day, everybody. You're listening to a Happy Breath Hour. Our intention is for you to learn and practice how the breath can guide you to wake up, let go, and shift your success and happiness in life, love, business, sports, and beyond. I'm your host, Roberto, a happy coach. But before we get going and introduce me, this powerful guest today, I want to take a few deep breaths, a sigh of relief, like most of my audience know it already. We call this coming back home breath, really connecting to your heart, but you can do it anytime. And what we do is we inhale through the nose for 2 or 3 seconds, and then we let it go through the mouth. So we're going to do that 3 or 4 times just to clear and get centered. Okay, so let's do it. So we inhale, then exhale through the mouth. But relax and let it go. Inhale, relax and let it go. 2 more times. Inhale for 2 seconds. Exhale, relax, and let it go. And then 1 more time. Inhale. Exhale. So notice how you're feeling. We should be feeling more centered. We should be more present. But my guest today is Sheena Eizmendiz. I hope I
got
said
that
it
right. You got that last name right, Roberto. That's a good thing.
Okay. She's a best-selling author of Path of Emergence from Loss to Triumph. Sheena is a mindset coach, corporate trainer, and speaker. She's worked with a lot of top Fortune companies by providing leaders and their teams a customized solution through her executive and personal development coaching programs. She has over 20 years of working with an extensive client list, including CEOs of multi-million-dollar companies and political leaders. She has appeared in numerous TV and radio stations as a leading expert in the wellness industry. What else can I say? We got a powerful...
I don't know, but I want to meet her. Who's this person?
She is like powerful stuff. And welcome, Sheena.
Thank you.
I met Sheena like about, I don't know, was it like 3 months ago? I forgot.
Yeah, a couple of months ago.
Yeah, and we did this wellness program at a big company in Miami, and it was wonderful. And
it was a lot of fun, and the employees got to learn a lot. They're still talking about it, as a matter of fact. So we're definitely working on other things that I will bring to your attention once we have everything and ready to go.
So that's great. So, so today we're going to talk a little bit about how we can, integrate, breath work and personal development, right? So I want to get an idea more about, what's the breath story, or how do you define breath work, in the personal development world?
I believe that they're both intertwined. Life is breath, and without it, there's really no existence. And it's kind of like what you did at the start of this conversation. I think that through our breathing, it helps us to center and ground. It's very similar to when we embark in the journey of working on our personal development. And that's why I say that they're intertwined. Really, one cannot exist without the other. When we're working on our breathing and we're working on ourselves, as when we're working personally in our development, we're really working to, face certain challenges, overcome certain issues, and more than anything, to really step into the best version of ourselves. And I know that through breathing, we're able to address many ailments, not just mental, emotional, and physical ailments, but, ailments that are causing disruptions in our life, kind of like our own behavior sometimes and the things that we do. And that's why personal development is so important in working and developing ourselves so we can be better people.
Wow. You said a lot there. So breath, that's why I say, breathe and play your way back to happiness. So in order that you can create a space for somebody to play a life or a business game that is worth playing, you know, and it's kind of funny because you can ask, a lot of times people say, oh, I breathe all the time. I've been breathing for 30 years. That's why I'm alive,
But are you breathing correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. I go, so let me ask you a question. How are you breathing?
Terrible.
And they have no idea, like if I ask people, how are you breathing? They don't know if they're breathing in their stomach, if they're breathing shallow, if they're breathing through the nose, because they're not conscious about it, right? So it's kind of like when people, when they do like that and they get it, they go, oh my God, it's the breath that's really breathing me. That's like a key, because it's like there's an awareness that you have that all of a sudden you go, oh my God, it's really the breath is breathing me, and I don't think I'm breathing correctly. I'm not like, and then it shifts the conversation, and then you can all of a sudden have a different conversation with somebody that says, oh no, I've been breathing 50 years. That's it.
Then they realize I haven't been breathing at all.
Yeah.
Like I'm surviving through life, but I'm not really living, right? That's the same thing with breath.
Yeah, well, there's studies that show that about 95% of the people are breathing incorrectly. So, so that attributes a lot to, like you were saying, right? Like your body breaking down, being too much in your mind. One good thing about the breath is that, like, if you can put your attention on the breath and become aware of it, the more you put attention on the breath, the less you put attention in the mind. So all those stories that we have created, right?
Those narratives.
Yeah, right. It kind of starts slowing down, and perhaps we start becoming more conscious. And the more conscious you become of the breath, the more conscious you become of your body, the more conscious you become of your thoughts, of your environment, of people around you. So, and that's one of the skills of breath work, is to become aware. And the message there is to wake up, because most of us think that we're awake.
That is true.
Right. So anyway, so in terms of, so how have you applied, like in your, in the companies that you've been in, and what are like some of the problems that you see, right? And how people might be able to, what's the, with the personal development, you go in, and what are people's issue, and how is personal development can help them, and perhaps how you use maybe some breath work to support either individuals or teams in companies. That's so important to be able to bring it into, like, companies that are trying to improve their performance.
So I would say mindset is key. And when we think of mindset and working on our mindset and learning how to shift our mindset, it's not a one-step process. It's not as easy as I just want to change the way I'm thinking. I mean, I think by virtue, everyone wants to be able to change the way they think, especially when you recognize and you have the awareness that what you're thinking isn't serving you. What I find is that by working mindset and being able to attribute that a lot of the things that we experience have a lot to do with the way we're viewing it, the way that we're perceiving it, it really helps us to have that awareness, but then it gives us an opportunity to be able to shift the way that we're thinking, and the way that we think therefore changes the way we look at the world, and then our world changes as a result of that. One of the key things that I see with teams and even leaders is mindset. There are leaders that are in positions of leadership that don't really have a mindset of a leader, and that's really important. It's being able to offer them and the necessary skills so they're developed more into leaders, so then they can lead their teams. And when working with teams, you see that as a common theme. It's mindset. Whether the mindset is, I don't have a voice in this company, I am not being seen. I am not being heard. There's all these complaints, right? And in these stories, like you were just mentioning. So really working the mindset and forming a mindset that is more in alignment with what someone wants and what serves them is really what I find that's very necessary for us to apply, not just in companies, but in our personal lives. And it is personal development.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, so the mind, right? So what we say in the breath world is that you shift your breath, you shift your world. You shift your breath, you shift your life.
Yeah.
And and the mindset, it's so interesting that you talk about the mindset, like I just mentioned before we started about this marketing company, the owner of it. She said, Roberto, what you need to do is go after mindset coaches. She goes, that's your niche. She goes, I could sell them all day about like getting more into the breath world. And I go, wow. So it's interesting how all mindset. I went to a party the other day. There was 3 people that came that were mindset coaches. So it's all over the place. But it's right. Look at the world today. How people have like all these opinions and all these stories and what's the facts, what's the truth, and it's all like it's a whole mind game. And how do you clear that, right? So you have clarity as an individual, right? Where the outside doesn't mess with you. It's like you're my belief is that we're manifesting everything that shows up in our presence. So if the outside is not working, right? It's not about changing the outside. It's going inside and shifting what you're creating. So I'm a believer of that we create our reality.
Certainly.
So everything that's showing up in my space, I've created.
Absolutely.
Good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, we are the writers and the artists and the directors of our own lives. I mean, we're co-creators.
So then we use, so how do we use that, that breath? So, I always ask people like, what were you doing before you got into personal development? And you got to mention.
That's a great question, because I feel like I've been in the personal development my entire life. It's sort of been a journey from very early on. I think when I was about 11 years old is really when I had that curiosity or interest, which I really have to thank my mom for that, because she was always into reading a lot of books on metaphysics and hypnosis. And, my mom was always into this. And so it kind of offered me an opportunity to go right into this world and this type of development very early on. I always had a curiosity and interest. I was fascinated by what we can do. And as people, as humans, as spiritual beings. And so I would say that my journey started when I was very, very young. It really just kind of the birth of it was when I was around 11 years old. That's where I was. My biggest interest was around that stage in my teenage years. I was very, very interested and fascinated. Yeah.
Wow. What kind of friends hung around with you?
I was that weird kid. I was a little different about that. I think I liked being different, though. I think that for me, being different was actually important. I didn't feel truly, and I think that's what happens when early on, it's sort of like your foundation and the framework of who you are. You start building this sense of self, right? Yeah. And this identity that you feel like, well, these things are here and these are tools that we can utilize. And so I felt very different from my friends growing up, because I was different, because we were not into the same things. I was going to Brian Wise, and I was just a teenager, to go see, a workshop of Brian Wise, and
wow.
Brian Wise
past
is a
lives and stuff. Oh my God!
Yeah, very esteemed psychiatrist who focus on past life regression. So I was a little different.
Wow, that's fascinating to have been exposed to that, when you're so young. Wow. It's so much different. Like it's so much different than my life. I
I
was
think,
more. I
I
was
think in
more.
the West, I think here in the West, Roberto, is not customary, right?
Yeah.
Because we live here in the United States, especially in America, we
Oh,
don't have those practices. But if you go to Asia and you go to certain countries in South America, it is
yeah.
actually quite normal for children to grow up within that type of society. It's just we don't
Yeah,
practice it there.
yeah, and there's tribes. I think in Colombia that they have like kids that they're in caves in the darkness until they're 7 years old, and when they come out of that darkness, they're like light beings,
Hmm.
and they become like shamans and stuff like that. It's like it's so interesting, like when I was growing up, it was all about leaving Cuba, not talking, like all that whole stuff, fear, I'm not good enough. And then I got into sports because that's where I was good at. And that's where it got me going. But in the sport world, it was like all ego. And it was good because it got me through college and all that stuff. But uh the funny part about it, like looking back, I didn't know, like if I knew about the breath back then, it would have helped me greatly in my athletic ability because I was a mouth breather. So like
Ah.
so like when I play football, I would run. Let's say I go 80 yards for a touchdown, I'll be like breathing through my mouth. And then in Florida, that was so humid. After I finished running 80 yards, I had to go and put oxygen mask and stuff like that. And it was that nobody ever told me that I should really breathe through the, like learn how to breathe through the nose. So even back then, I was doing certain things and that was really good, but it was all ego driven. So eventually my limiting beliefs caught up to me, and like I'm not good enough. So my whole life started showing up that way. And I didn't have, my spirituality was go to church, which yes, that helps, some and all that, but it wasn't like, the awareness of I don't know, of awareness of that there's a whole world there, and that I was creating all my bad things, my reality, my limiting beliefs. I'm not good showing up. I I had no idea until I went into college and I started, like reading all these books, and that was in the 60s, and I kind of got into spirituality coming in through a different way,
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well,
marijuana, this, acid.
they say that all roads lead to Rome. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't
So,
really, I think it doesn't matter what stage in your life. I think
yeah,
it's a matter of, being able to have a curiosity and finding these tools like breath work,
yeah,
like working in personal development and having that innate feeling of wanting to better ourselves or seeking, just even in the sense of just seeking, right? Looking for something. I think
yeah,
that it doesn't matter when it happens. The good
yeah,
thing is
yeah.
that it happens.
It could happen when you're, at any moment, right? It's like it's not like you missed it. Like I tell people, I just turned 70, right? So I feel like I'm, like I'm, I
70
feel,
years young.
yeah, like so. So anyway, but I'm going to ask you this question, but it's like I don't know. My next question is, what advice you will give a 21 year your 21-year-old self?
What advice would I give?
Like
That's a great question. It's a great question.
yeah, but your path is so different than most people.
But those are tools, and you have to remember, these are tools, but we're still humans and we're still fallible.
Mhm,
And experience is really what helps us go through the trials and errors. And at
mhm,
21, I clearly lacked maturity, skills, right? No matter, how early on I was introduced to this personal development world or the spiritual world or just the world on all these tools that are accessible to us. I think if I go back and I'd say to myself when I was 21, to be candid, I would probably tell myself, you don't control anything. It's literally what I would say to myself. Learn to accept that you don't control anything. It's what I would tell myself, and to continue to work on myself, because the work of the self is eternal. It doesn't have a beginning and an end. And I think if we lived in a society where early on we cultivate that, we teach that to children, it helps us to know that we have resources, that even when we make mistakes, when we find ourselves in our biggest challenges, that there's always something we could do. There's always a tool. There's something that we can utilize.
Wow. A lot of wisdom that you explained. Yeah, and there's and especially now, right? There's a lot more people out there that can support you, right? That you can learn from. That's what I would say. Like, like I've been a coach and a teacher and a facilitator and all that, but really I learn more from everybody that I coach.
Absolutely.
Than me teaching them.
Certainly.
But you have to have that mindset. Like, we go back to the mindset. Like, I'm what I tell people is I'm de-learning. At the moment you think you're in trouble.
You don't know anything.
Yeah. It changes. Like for many years. Part of my challenge was that I thought I knew it all and I was always right. That, like I would tell people, I listen like a great Cuban. I know it all and I was always right. So guess how much I listened? Sip. Yeah. Because I wasn't open, and that caused some headaches and some, and that was a big cost in my life. But so through breath work and all kinds of different works that I've done, I've been grateful, and that I've been able to get exposed to, let's call them tools, right, or practices that have opened me up a little bit, and there's still probably much more to go.
Absolutely.
But it's an ongoing, like you said, right? It's an ongoing process.
It is. I think the key is that remaining students for, in the entirety of our lives is not to perceive that we're masters of anything, but that we're students of life. And I think that keeps us curious, and it helps us to have a desire to use these tools. And listen, even though I early on was exposed to these things, it doesn't mean I've always used them. Even though I know that they exist, I know how they work, I know how to use them, that doesn't mean that I've always used them. And I think what's really important about that is that when I haven't used them, it's when I have found the worst aspects of myself. It's when I have shown up as the worst possible person. It's when I've shown up and I haven't been the best me. And so, having these tools and not using them really doesn't help us. The key is knowing that these tools are out there, that there's people like you, facilitators, teachers, coaches that can teach us how to use these things, and knowing that the support is there.
Yeah.
And being vulnerable enough to use it, right? And asking for help.
Yeah, well, and in sports or everything, it's all habits also. Like if you learn a breath technique that can support you, let's say, to remove anxiety, it's not like you learn it in YouTube, right? And you do it 1 or 2 times. It's like you have to practice enough. So the habit in your, they call it the reptilian brain, that anytime something happens, you get anxiety and you stop breathing, right? You have to be able to shift that reptilian brain So you have to breathe enough. We have a formula. I call it for beginners. To practice the breath 5 minutes a day. Now, if you want to be explorer, to explore a little more, is 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, 5 minutes at midday. If you want to become a master, it's 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, 10 minutes during the day, in the midday. Now, if you want to become like a guru, right, you do 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, and 10 times during the day for 2 minutes. So the more you practice, you change your habits, so it becomes an automatically response that then all of a sudden something happens, and instead of not breathing or breathing very shallow, you're going to start breathing slow and full, and automatically you don't have to do anything because the breath will take over, but it has to have the right kind of like the right physical experience that it can only change through practice.
Practice is key.
Yeah, so it's like anything that you want to become a good skier or you want to become a good speaker, right? The more you practice it, the better you get, Absolutely. So it's like the habit, I started doing I would never do a podcast or everything because I wasn't, what am I going to, I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah.
We do that to ourselves a lot. Yeah.
So now I start doing it, and I just have fun with it, and the more I do, the easier it gets and the better it gets. So it's the same thing with the breath. So the advice of the 21-year-old self, I got that, right? So now here's the next question. Step out into 2032, 10 years from now, you're looking back, what are the highlights of the past 10 years?
Well, I hope I've learned by then not to control everything. As I said, I'm still a student, I'm still learning this idea, because I think what's really interesting is that I'm very aware cognitively that I don't control anything, but then there's ego, right? That always wants to be in the driver's seat and wants to have a voice. And so I hope by 2032, I've been able to better that or improve it. I don't believe in perfection because I always say perfection doesn't exist. There's only room for improvement. So definitely in that sense, I hope I'm a lot better in my control issues. And I probably by then have written a third or fourth book. I think that would be for me a highlight in continuing to, put on paper stories and insight. I think more than anything with the purpose of trying to make people think and hopefully help them to transform something in their life.
So when that happens, right? Like with all those books that you've written, what's happening now in the personal development world?
That would be the personal development world because it would be books to continue to help people develop themselves personally.
Yeah, so there'll be there's more community, more people with better mindsets and stuff like that, right? Like a change, a transformed world. It's like, it's unbelievable, right? Like if you take breath work, I started doing this like in 2000, right? There might have been 30 million people that were doing actually, different types of breath work at the time, right? You take it 30 years later or 23 years later, there's probably today, before pandemic, there might have been 80 million. After the pandemic, it's like almost 200 million people. And there's now groups and, more groups, 10 years from now, there's going to be communities breathing together. There's going to be, so I feel like personal development it's always been growing. Personal development's been, I've been in personal development a long time myself.
And it's come a long way. I think that because of technology and the fact that we can even have conversations like these,
Yeah.
and we're able to reach a larger audience. We're able to really share these tools and these resources. So that amplifies this. So absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah, like like 40 years ago, like if you want to learn about rebirthing or any kind of break, if it's either a book or somebody went to, I don't know, India or something, and you learn, and somebody told you you couldn't you couldn't get an email or something, social media, and tell you, hey, we got all this thing going on. So it's so right about having the technology and how good technology could be. It has its bad points, but also just being in the phone and not breathing.
That's true. It's about how we use everything, right?
Yeah. So what would be your biggest advice for someone who's starting, I don't know, personal development, breath work, like looking for ways to, like better their health, maybe their mindset, or like looking to perform better in their businesses or in their life? What would be your biggest advice to them?
I would tell them that personal development, regardless of the tools they use, whether it's breath work, whether they're working on yoga, they're doing mindset coaching, whatever that looks like, because it's so broad, right? The umbrella is so large. I would say to embark in that journey knowing that it doesn't have a beginning and an end. It's a continuum. And it is not a trend, it's a lifestyle. That's key.
Wow.
Is knowing that once you start working on yourself, it's a commitment you make that is for yourself, but that it's eternal, because there's no such thing as working on yourself. And even if you've been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years, now you've mastered something. It really is about improvement and constantly working on other areas of ourselves and other challenges that may come up, and having a happier life and seeking happiness and and cultivating happiness. But it's not a trend, it's a lifestyle. That's the most important thing. This is not a trend. This is not those things like, whoa, it's cool to do personal development or to do breath work. No, it's a lifestyle.
Wow. That's that's so true. Like it's just like you're saying, it just becomes part of your life.
Yes.
It's a way of life. And be able to, hey, listen, the better you breathe, and at least from a breath work, and there's all kinds of breath work, like you're saying, yoga, pranayama, or there's so many different types of techniques and mindset tools that somebody can use, and what I tell people is, listen, try all the different breaths and then create your own that works for you. So and that goes for any kind of tool or any kind of teacher. Like you want to learn from different teachers, learn, and then you're the own guru. That's my new thing, right? I just create the space for you to be the guru, for you to be the teacher, not for me to teach you. You're actually creating everything. You follow me? So what would be, since we're talking about breath work and personal development, is there a particular breathing technique that you use that you want to tell the audience that you use?
I'll be candid. I'm not I don't breathe correctly. And I think early on when you and I met a couple of months ago, we were having a conversation. We talked about this. Breathing, as I know, is incredibly important. I realize that that's just it. A lot of times when I'm not breathing, it's because I'm not present. And when I'm not present, I'm not breathing. Right. And so it's sort of a habit. But when I do try intentionally to center, to ground, and try to breathe, I like box breathing. I find that it's always been very effective for me. And it's something that I've relied on. And I've tried to do it. And, I've tried other styles of breathing. I haven't yet found something that, it's not about finding, it's more like I haven't yet practiced something that I've been fully committed into doing, kind of like you shared earlier. Try this 5 minutes in the day or 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night. I think that's an incredible recommendation. And it's good. It's a great practice. And it's something for, I would even challenge myself to trying and seeing how well I do with that.
I'll send you 4 different, but box breathing.
I love that.
Box breathing is like a great technique. Like that's one of my, I do like 4, like beginner breaths. Box breathing is one of them, and because it gives you focus, clarity.
Yes.
It helps you work on holding your breath, so and different things. And it's also great for teamwork to be able to, like, when you do that. And for the people that know, box breathing is where you inhale, let's say for 4, a count of 4, you hold for 4, you release and let go for 4, then you hold for 4. I use box breathing to go to sleep. But I go 4, 4, 4, 4, then I go 6, 6, 6, 8, 8, 8, 10, 10, wow. 12. And well, by the time I get to 12, I guess I'm either asleep or dying. 14, but so that's an awesome, breath technique. So let's just do it like just 4, so that the audience can kind of practice it.
I like that idea. You're the master at this, not me.
So I'm a student. So but that, like, and the other thing I wanted to say, and that's a problem, the challenge, right? If you want to have a breakthrough in any kind of work, especially since I concentrate a lot on the breath, it's like, if you want to shift your breath pattern, you have to shift into what's not comfortable and what you don't like to do, because that's where the breakthrough comes. So if you like, let's say a nose breather, it's like a lot of yogi. No, I don't want to breathe through the mouth. Breathe through the mouth, master the mouth, right? And then master both. So it's like, if you don't like something, that's what you need to do. At least in the breath world, right? So, and that's why I challenge people. Oh, I don't have time. What do you mean you don't have time? You're breathing anyway. All you're doing now is becoming conscious. Like, do the box breathing while you're doing coffee. Like. So anyway, so I want to throw that in, because that helps people to break through. To make some time. Everything else is more important instead of going inside. And really, what inside, the more you go there and let the breath eventually connect to what I call spirit, then everything works. We're trying to get somewhere all the time, to get to some place, instead of being there now and then playing your life game from that space. That's the difference, so breath is a shortcut there. But let's try the box breath, right? So I'll just lead it. So you can inhale through the nose and out the mouth, or in the nose, whatever you feel comfortable with right now, but just so everybody can get a feel of it. Okay, so we're going to inhale. Ready? Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. 4, 3, 2, 1. Let go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. 3, 2, 1. Pause. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. 3, 2, 1. Pause. Let go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try 6. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Notice how you're feeling.
It is
Yeah.
calming.
Uh-huh.
It's extremely calming. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the first things one feels is this sense of calm and
Mhm.
present, being very present.
Mhm. Yeah. And there you're working with the hold, which at the beginning, I don't like people to hold too much. I call it pause. Hold, you tighten up. You want to pause, which is relaxing, right? Um, but it's a great thing, and you can use different things with it, right? So like if you're doing with a team, when you inhale the vision together, right? And then you hold the vision. Then you release the vision, and then you're okay with no vision. Then boom, like that, right? The Navy SEALs use that before when they're going to go in the thing, but they do like maybe 20, 10, 10, but they use it to get together as a team when they're going into an assignment. And then when they land and they're doing their thing, they use it like a more of an ongoing breath, like, they're very, very, they're masters of the breath to have more awareness, right? And be able to do what they do. But you don't need to be a Navy SEAL. You have to be just you and do that kind, But that, the box breathing is take one breath that you do and practice it, and then try another one. I have a thing that has 21 different breaths. My breath, my go-to breath, it's a 20 breath technique.
Oh my goodness. That's quite a lot. That takes a lot of practice.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so we're coming to an end here, and I know you have some other things to do. Let me see here. Before closing, right? How can people get a hold of you?
It's easy. I'm on social media where I provide a lot of content. For me, it's really important to continue to give resources, tools to my audience. And it's at Sheena Eizmendiz, pretty much for everything from LinkedIn to Instagram to TikTok. And there's also my website, which is sheenaeizmendiz.com.
Okay, great. And for the audience out there, what was like, I'm asking them, right? What was the one thing that you got from all this wisdom that you got today from Sheena? You can drop it off and maybe send it to her Instagram or her Facebook.
I'd love to hear about them.
Right? Or you can go to my, you can find me and drop it off in my thing, El Happy Coach. And tell us what, maybe give us some suggestions how we can improve this podcast, what you want to hear. But also ask us any other questions or anything that you want to know about personal development. Sheena's a master at that.
No master.
Especially if you're in South Florida. And I really, really, really so happy that you came on today and
I'm very happy to be here.
And supported us and we can do it again, anytime. Anytime you want. Is there anything else you want to say before we say?
I will say, practice your breathing, work on yourself, because the only real responsibility we have is to ourselves. Everything else is the stories we tell ourselves. That's all it is. That's
wow. So we'll end it in that in that tip. And thank you the audience for listening. And until next time, breathe happy, live happy, and we'll see you in the next show.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again, Sheena.
Take good care.
Okay, namaste, everyone.